What's up, everyone? Josh here, Ohio Grid Racing. Today I'm going to tackle an extremely controversial topic in no prep and street racing in the modern era. Chase is a race. So for me, growing up, I was first exposed to street racing back in the probably around 85, 86, 87-ish as a young lad. And I would go to hang out at the local spot here in Columbus with a buddy of mine's older brother. He would take us down there and we'd hang out all night and watch everybody. They didn't do shootouts back then. This was, grudge racing style. And, so we'd all go hang out in the parking lot back then, which was Hart's and Big Bear, Central Point. And we'd all go hang out and everybody would just talk and chit-chat and negotiate. And this was before technology, so everybody didn't have a camera on their cell phone, and obviously you're on the street, so you didn't have a way to proves whether or not somebody did or didn't jump. And Chase is a race. I don't know when Chase is a race originated, when that concept was born, but I do know that back then, with the lack of technology, it was an appropriate answer to a common problem. Did someone leave early? They were doing the arm drop. A lot harder to tell if a finger twitched versus a flashlight coming on or off, and again, didn't have cameras. So if both people move, it's a race and you go. Another part of that back then was negotiating lengths, and I want to touch on that as well because it ties into the whole modern era of racers, in my opinion, especially the ones who are against Chase as a race and why they are. So back then, you would also negotiate lengths. You would know, here's a 1,000 horsepower big tire car versus a 500 horsepower small tire car racing on the street. Well, of course, one of them has a bigger advantage than the other, and it's a foolish proposition to say, hey, I want to race for $500, $1,000, whatever. I mean, I've seen some street races be 15, 20 grand here back in the 90s, in the dope boy era. So it's foolish to negotiate a race you know you're going to lose. So they would negotiate lengths, which is kind of the street equivalent, I hate to admit, of bracket racing. You're trying to negotiate the lengths so that the slower and the faster car cross the stripe approximately the same time. Instead of having your opponent have twice as much horsepower and more tire than you, half track you, you're trying to even it out. So there's two viewpoints from this that I hear consistently, and here's my opinion based on my life experience and the stuff I've heard from people. To me, I love an underdog. I've always loved an underdog, and I'm always going to root for an underdog. So I love Chase as a race, and I love the whole idea of what I grew up on, negotiating lengths in the streets to try and make it as fair as possible. So to me, some of y'all are going to take offense. This is my opinion. Do with it what you want. To me, there's a lot more girth in a man's balls who will be willing to race the faster guy with more technology, more horsepower, more whatever, and just ask for a few lengths or a few lengths in the hit, versus the guy who's got twice as much horsepower and all the technology, etc., and essentially is just wanting to puppy kick somebody and win by trying to convince you, which is the hustle. It's the funny thing too, sidetrack real quick. is typically the argument I hear is, oh, Chases a Race is for hustlers. But everybody wants to do a heads-up race these days, and it's always the guy that has twice as much horsepower or who knows they're faster that doesn't want to negotiate anything remotely close to fair. Never. Because they know the odds are greatly in their favor. Of course, it's racing, anything could happen, spin, blah, blah, blah. However, you can't be a racer and go into any race banking on someone else to make a mistake for your win. That's foolish. Absolutely foolish. It's a sucker's bet. And who's worse in this? The puppy kicker who would try and convince you that you're less of a man, less of a racer, or less of a racer. I shouldn't say man, because there's plenty of females out there too. So that you're less of a racer, or you're somehow cowardly because you have common combination turbo LS, you're 800 to 1200 horsepower, and you're asking for a few links or a few links in the hit versus their 2000 horsepower big block Chevy. Who's really got the little frozen chick-sized peanuts? So I think, I would love personally to see more Chases a Race, more length negotiating, more competitive racing. I would love to see more people gladiator up and welcome the challenges. Yes, racing's expensive. Yes, it's risky. But if you're that higher horsepower, higher technology, faster guy, why wouldn't you welcome the challenge of running someone down and beating them? Why would you be so concerned about if they jumped or not? If they jumped, learn to sit. I've seen lots of races. Probably the one that I was there, the highest race I've ever seen where somebody won was on a bike, was for $5,000 on the street, and the guy sat because the other guy jumped. So it's not a hustle. It can be a hustle. I mean, anything can be a hustle. And listen, a lot of time, what they're calling hustle is one racer getting in another racer's head. So you can give somebody control over you and your money and how you race because they pissed you off with words, or they said you're less of a racer if you don't accept their challenge that's obviously in their favor. I don't know, man. There's a lot of things to think about here, and a lot of things to ponder. I know a lot of people just instantly get to, I grew up in bracket racing, so boo hoo hoo, we gotta have a tree and blah blah blah, or we gotta have tire crack cam. I mean, I get it. A lot of street racers nowadays grew up in bracket racing, watched the TV show on Discovery, thought it would be a cool idea and made the transition. It is a cool idea. It's way better than bracket racing. However, honor the traditions. Check out what the history is. Learn about it. Think about how many more races you could get. I get it. Street shootouts, I mean, they're glamorized because of TV. But honestly, they're becoming more and more obsolete because takeovers, they're harder to get off. I see more and more of them, going a couple of rounds and having to split because of police or weather. I say bring back the days of grudge racing. This is Ohio grudge racing, by the way. But, I mean, I don't hate shootouts, but I love grudge racing. And I love everything that encompasses it. And why another benefit is, why go make 5, 6, 7 passes to potentially win a race that you have? Say you travel cross country or even a couple states over for a race. You spend $1,500, $2,000 a weekend to race in a race, or you could spend that same money doing one race. Less wear and tear on the car, less risk of anything catastrophic happening, and a lot more exciting, a lot more on the line when you're racing one person for $1,000 or $2,500 on the street or at the track or whatever as a grudge race versus a shootout. Shootouts are fun, they're great, I love them. You know, we do a race that's shootout style and it's a great time. But nothing is more exciting than traditional grudge racing, and Chase of a Race is part of that. Since day one was a key component of why that was exciting and why it worked. And there's nothing wrong with it, despite what anybody says. And I will argue that to the end of time and support Chase as a Race and negotiating links till the day I die. I will happily support any and all grudge racing in that style. I'll still support shootouts with as much enthusiasm as I always do because I love them too. But JJ's arm drop this past weekend prompted me to want to bring this subject back up. It seems like every year or two I have to touch on it again because everybody is always like, Josh likes Chase as a Race, so go send him messages. Alright, I hear you. And here's my response. It's still better than tire crack. It's still better than boo-hooing and crying and puppy kicking. I mean, think about shootouts. If everybody went and made a test hit. You know, this is how we do our ladies race. And it's free entry, and the ladies are having a blast doing it this way. What if everybody went and made a test hit? All your competitors watched your test pass, and then you negotiated the race after. And you know what? The ladies are having a blast with it. The races have been pretty close, negotiated pretty well, and they're having a lot of fun doing it that way. They're having a lot of fun learning about Chase as a Race. I mean, it's a real thing, and it's a real fun time. And if you get out of the puppy kick, crybaby mentality, and I'm just going to call it what it is, and get outside of your bracket racer box and embrace it, I'm pretty sure you'd have a lot more fun. So, anyways, I know, light me up in the comments below. Tomorrow's live feed. What the hell is tomorrow even? So tomorrow's live feed, Monday, July 17th, is going to be all about Chase as a Race, and we can have a big old debate. I just figured, you know, I'd stoke the fires and do a quick video to get everybody's juices going and research on and hear all your stuff tomorrow. You can light me up on the live feed at 7:30 Eastern time, and we'll just have a good old fun time. I was on my way to Milan when it got called, so I just turned around and came home and worked in the barn on a few things, and worked on the Blazer and edited a bunch of pictures. And as soon as I upload this video, I'm going back out there and working on the Blazer, so I'll have some updates on the live feed tomorrow about that as well. But yeah, Chase as a Race for president.